Solutions in Hawaii. My name is Erica Garut, and I'm the program manager for the Institute for Integrative Conservation at William & Mary. And I'm joined virtually tonight by several members of the IIC team who will be active on tonight's chat, including Robert Rose, our executive director, John Swaddle, our faculty director, Kathy Francillo, our administrative coordinator, Craig Anzalone, our development director from the Office of University Advancement, and Jasmine Dix, our communications and marketing student assistant. Tonight's event is hosted by the Institute for Integrative Conservation and the Raymond A. Mason School of Business, with support from the Office of University Advancement at William & Mary. Moderated by Justin Pender, an MS candidate in business analytics in the Mason School of Business, tonight's event will feature a discussion with Enrique Sánchez-Rivera, who is a William & Mary alum and the CEO of Augmented Island Studios, and Matt Ramsey, who is the director of the Conservation International Hawaii program. And they'll be discussing their collaborative work to use augmented reality to engage communities in the conservation of Hawaii's marine ecosystems and the socioeconomic benefits it provides local people. Before we begin, I would like to thank Enrique, Matt, and Justin for sharing their time and expertise with us tonight. I would also like to thank Ashley Justin and Tim Von Stetten from the Office of University Advancement, and Megan Sandberry and Julie Hummel from the Mason School of Business for their help with the event. I would also like to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join us for this exciting discussion. Tonight's event is part of the Spring 2021 Conservation Speaker Series, and I invite you to join us for several upcoming events. On April 14th and 16th, the undergraduate students in our year-long conservation research program will be presenting their research proposals, outlining the projects they will be implementing this summer alongside conservation partners and faculty mentors, and they would appreciate your feedback on their proposals. On April 20th and 21st, the IIC is working with the Office of Sustainability and an interdisciplinary William & Mary team to host a sustainability symposium that will feature two complementary events. On April 20th, Celine Cousteau, a filmmaker, artist, and activist, will lead us through a discussion on our interconnectedness, and will highlight her work to share the story of the indigenous people of the Javari region of the Brazilian Amazon, who are fighting for their rights as guardians of globally important ecosystems. On April 21st, Winona LaDuke, an internationally renowned Native American environmentalist and political activist, will share her perspective on the importance of individuals connecting with their local communities and ecosystems to benefit their future and the world. Also, the IIC is excited to announce that we are hosting an immersive mural pitch competition this spring. Inspired by the work that Enrique and Matt are doing that we'll learn more about tonight, we are working closely with Augmented Island Studios, mural artist Eric Scottness, the City of Williamsburg, Midtown Row, the Muscarel Museum of Art, the Art and Art History Department, and the Office of Sustainability to host this mural pitch competition. We invite undergraduate students from William & Mary to work in interdisciplinary teams to pitch an idea for a mural and a corresponding augmented reality Instagram app designed to inspire the Williamsburg community to engage in meaningful conservation action. The winning team of students will receive a prize and will work alongside Enrique and his team from Augmented Island Studios, mural artist Eric Scottness, and William & Mary experts to implement the mural and augmented reality experience in fall 2021. Interested students should register by March 24th, and we invite you all to watch the webinar competition on April 9th. Tomorrow, we will send you all a follow-up email that has a list of these events and their registration links. We hope you can join us. Tonight's event explores the intersection between business, technology, and conservation, and the ways that we can leverage expertise from the technology and business sectors to advance conservation solutions. This topic aligns with the Institute for Integrative Conservation mission to cultivate an inclusive community of creative leaders from across disciplines and sectors to deliver innovative solutions to the world's most pressing conservation challenges. Established in January of 2020, thanks to a generous donation from a William & Mary alumna, the IIC aims to connect William & Mary's interdisciplinary expertise with conservation partners from across sectors to advance global conservation efforts. The IIC is actively working to build a network of students, faculty, staff, alumni, parents, community members, and conservation partners from across the public, private, and nonprofit sector, who can bring together global expertise, diverse perspectives, and an entrepreneurial mindset to address global conservation challenges, and to build a diverse generation of conservation leaders who are prepared to take an integrative approach to conservation. To achieve this goal, we are working to develop an integrative conservation curriculum. We are engaging William & Mary students and faculty in applied conservation research in collaboration with conservation partners through our conservation research program. And we are fostering opportunities for alumni, parents, and external partners to serve as professional mentors for William & Mary students. And we are fostering this collaborative network of innovative leaders through our outreach and events. We would like to invite you all to sign up for the IIC listserv and to visit the IIC website to learn more about how you can get involved. Over the past year, we have appreciated the support and advice we have received from faculty, students, alumni, and conservation partners who have helped us envision the potential of the IIC and to build this growing network. Enrique has been a tremendous support and inspiration for the IIC, and we are very thankful for all that he has done to support us and to support the broader William & Mary community. Enrique, thank you for all your help. The collaborative work that Enrique, Matt, and their teams are leading that we'll learn more about tonight is truly an example of an integrative approach to conservation. And we are thankful for their willingness to share their time and expertise with us tonight. Tonight's event will start with a moderated discussion and will end with a question and answer session. We encourage questions for Enrique and Matt. And so to ask a question, please go to the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. All attendees' mics and videos will be turned off throughout the event. And tonight's event will be recorded, and we will be sending you a follow-up email with a link to the recording, information about upcoming events, and an event survey tomorrow morning. If you have a smartphone and Instagram, please have your phone ready so that you can participate in an augmented reality experience during tonight's event. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Justin Pender, who is tonight's moderator. Justin is currently in our Master's of Science in Business Analytics program and graduated from UVA with a degree in Global Environment and Sustainability. While studying at UVA, Justin spearheaded a variety of community-based environmental initiatives, such as establishing recycling and composting programs within various student organizations. During his studies, he focused on the intersection between business and sustainability, researching the relationship between corporate environmental policies and company valuation. He also studied social entrepreneurship and worked for Babylon Microfarms, an ag tech startup using automation to conserve resources in the customer agriculture industry. He is now studying business analytics in the Mason School of Business, en route to starting a career as a software engineer at Capital One, where he hopes to hone his skills in order to advance conservation and sustainability. Justin, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to you. Thank you so much for your help with tonight's discussion.
Thank you, Erica. I'm so excited to be here. So as she said, my name's Justin, and I'm now working on developing my technology skills, but my core interest has always been the sustainability mission. But for the next few years, I'll be working at a financial institution as a software engineer. Because I'm deeply interested and passionate about sustainability, but my career won't directly allow me to contribute to this, I'm very personally interested in forming a collaboration like Enrique and Matthew have been able to do, where they've used business to help advance the conservation mission. And so I think this is a wonderful opportunity to find how business and technology skills can advance the global mission to conserve the world's resources. So the purpose of this event is to address the world's most pressing conservation challenges And that requires that we find integrative solutions that are transformative, scalable, and that promote both conservation and human well-being. To keep up with the pace of biodiversity loss, we need to take an entrepreneurial approach to conservation that applies best practices from the business and technology sector to develop solutions that foster innovation, encourage collaboration, and result in systemic shifts in our relationship with the environment. And as an example of this integrative approach, we will explore the work that Enrique and Matthew Ramsey are using augmented reality to advance conservation in Hawaii. So in this interview style event, I'll ask a series of questions to shed light on their mission and their collaboration. And hopefully they'll be able to give us some advice on how we as a William & Mary community can foster innovation and use our entrepreneurial skills to advance this mission. So I'll ask them a series of questions. We'll hear their firsthand stories, and you all will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So first, I'm going to introduce Enrique. Enrique Sánchez-Rivera is the CEO of Augmented Island Studios, a full-service augmented reality and virtual reality studio based in Portland, Oregon, with development offices in Cali, Colombia. He's a 2007 graduate of the William & Mary full-time MBA program and is the VP of engagement in the Mason School of Business Alumni of Color Network. So I'm sure a lot of you know him from that. Before starting Augmented Island Studios, he was running a sustainable swim suit and sportswear company called La Isla, based out of LA and Colombia, where he was first exposed to the potential of augmented reality and immersive technology. While exploring this interest, he met Mauricio Fernandez and a small team of Colombia-based augmented reality software developers. In 2018, he worked with this team to develop Augmented Island Studios, where all the developers own an equal share. Enrique is originally from Cali, Colombia, but has a deep connection to Williamsburg, VA, and has maintained sustained engagement with William & Mary. He's a role model for all of us William & Mary students and an example of how we can harness our William & Mary experience to build the innovation, networking, and professional skills needed to make a difference in the world. Matthew Ramsey is the director of Conservation International's Hawaii program. Matt's been committed to the conservation of Hawaii's marine ecosystems and the benefits it provides local communities throughout his career. He was previously a Hawaii Fisheries Extension Agent for NOAA and for the Department of Land and Natural Resources in Hawaii. With Matt's lead, Conservation International Hawaii program is the only place in the States where Conservation International has a presence on the ground to work with communities, industry, and government to return to an abundant ocean in Hawaii. The Conservation International team is truly a leader in the conservation field for their approach to conserving Hawaii's natural resources and their marine ecosystems, which provide the seafood that serves as an important food source, supports local livelihoods, and serves as an inspiration and cultural resources for local communities and Hawaii's 7 million annual visitors. Conservation International's approach works to benefit local fishers, managers, local communities, seafood consumers, and the broader community of Hawaii. Given the ambitious goal of the Hawaii program, Matt's been building a team of collaborators from across the business and technology sector to work to leverage expertise and innovation to advance their work. So now I'm going to ask them both a series of questions, and I'm going to start with Enrique just to get a little bit of background on him. So Enrique, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path?
Sure, Justin. Well, thank you very much for the nice introduction. I don't deserve it. Thank you so much. Yeah, sure. My name is Enrique, and I was born and raised in Colombia, in Cali, Colombia, which is the third largest city in the country. And I had the fortune of growing up in a family that really loved and respected nature very much. I was lucky that I got to spend time with my great grandmother who was 107 at the time she passed, and spent a lot of time with my grandmother. And so a lot of the traditions that they had, I was able to enjoy and learn from. And even though I lived in the city, my weekends were always spent at our family farm, and also discovering the Colombian Pacific Ocean, because my older brother had a boat, and the ocean was his passion, and so it became mine. Today, I'm very thankful about it, because these experiences help me have a very deep sense of responsibility and love for our planet. So when I was 18, I moved to Connecticut, and I went to UConn, go Huskies, and graduated with an econ degree. And after 6 years or so in the workforce, I eventually ended up going to William and Mary, and I received my MBA in 2007. But before I became a full-time entrepreneur, I worked in financial services for about 10 years. And although I already had founded that swimwear and sportswear manufacturing business that was based in Colombia, that was kind of my side hustle. I already was an entrepreneur, but I had not switched over to a full-time entrepreneur. So I had my last job in finance as an investment manager in Santa Barbara, California. And once I left that company, I left it so I could continue building my dream of becoming a full-time entrepreneur. And then 3 years ago, I founded Augmented Island Studios with 3 guys from Colombia, from Cali, Colombia also, who are now my business partners and part of my extended family.
That's very cool. I actually have a very similar background growing up by the ocean, and that's informed a lot of my decisions as well. So that's cool.
That's great.
So can you talk a little bit about Augmented Island Studios and how your team leverages technology to advance conservation?
Sure. So Augmented Island Studios is, as you mentioned in the intro, an AR and VR studio located in Portland, and we have all of our production in Cali, Colombia. And we focus on the development of AR and VR applications and experiences across many industries. We have developed experiences for education, training, conservation, entertainment, music, urban beautification, and a bunch of other things. I'm very happy to say that we're an award-winning studio. We received a first place award from CodaWorks in their public spaces category for a mural that we did in Columbus, Ohio. So that was very exciting. And we've just started our efforts of leveraging AR and VR to build awesome conservation experiences. And I'm thrilled to say that our project with CI Hawai'i was our first project delivered in the conservation field. We have a second project which we built for a UK company that sells reusable water bottles, and that one's supposed to be launching next week or in a few weeks. But we have big plans to continue developing educational and immersive experiences that have big impact on folks. And actually, I'm a bit early, but I can announce that that Augmented Island has partnered with Celine Cousteau to sort of start this new division of our company, which is going to be focused solely on the production of blended reality and immersive experiences dedicated to conservation. So this is very exciting. Celine and I met at the right time. I've been supporting her father for many years at Ocean Future Society, but she was ready to start using her imagination and her conservation intelligence to produce different things that are not just documentaries. I mean, not just in the nicest way possible. And so it's very exciting. We're gonna build this new division so that we can continue to create conservation applications that can deliver messages in different ways and storytelling in different creative ways that are immersive.
Wow. So it's becoming almost a core aspect of you all's business, or something that's very important to you all as a company. That's really,
Definitely.
I mean, I can attest to that being revolutionary as someone who studied the intersection between sustainability and business. So that's really cool. So for anyone who might not know, can you explain augmented reality and virtual reality and maybe the difference between them? And also, you've kind of shed a bit of light on this, but what's the value of AR and VR as tools for solving global environmental and social challenges?
Sure. So the main difference between AR and VR, and it's easily explained by saying, VR is when I always say it's a toaster. When you put a toaster in your face and and you sort of disappear into a different reality. And those headsets used to be big old heavy toasters, but now they're not. Now they're very light, and some of the units out there, you don't have to connect to your PC anymore. And so they're light, easy to wear. And once you turn it on and put it on your face, you're just completely immersed in a different world. And augmented reality is essentially, it's a way to project or put layers of information and of 3D stuff in front of you in your reality. And currently, most of us do that with our phones, with Instagram filters and Snapchat filters as well. But we believe strongly that augmented reality is going to be much bigger than virtual reality. There are a few quotes by Tim Cook that have really opened up our eyes and the world's eyes to what the potential of AR is. And he said it was going to be as important as the creation of the internet, and that in about 8 to 10 years we will all be wondering how we could have lived without AR. Just like we think today, how could we have lived without a cell phone? And so anyways, those are the difference. That's the difference between AR and VR. But they really allow people to be immersed in experiences. And the really powerful thing is that it elicits feelings in people, which in turn can trigger strong emotions about things. So there's a very good application, and I forget who built it right now, but it was a VR experience, and you put the VR headset on and you are acting as a person of color in this experience, or you are a person of color in this experience, and you're driving a car and you're pulled over by a police officer, and you get to go through that entire experience as if you were someone else. So you're fully immersed and you're a character in this experience. And so it's a very powerful way to tell a story, and you truly can participate in the experience and feel transported somewhere else.
Very cool. So it's very emotional and, I guess, personal, like I'm seeing these things for myself or experiencing these things for myself. Very cool.
Exactly.
So let's shift over to you, Matt, for a bit. Can you tell us about yourself and your career path?
Sure. I was born and raised in Hawaii. My career path was one of fun. The whole reason I went to school and went to Cornell University is because I wanted to play outdoors. Growing up, I had a great fortune of doing a lot of internships for different government agencies. And on those internships and fellowships, I got flown in a helicopter to the remote places of Hawaii, got to see exotic native landscapes and seascapes, and just got to be in the middle of nowhere, completely enjoying nature. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to get paid for it. But I quickly began to realize that once I left that little bubble of pristine nature, I got a wake-up call. I realized that people needed to be part of nature. They needed to connect to it. They need to understand the value of it. And that's what doesn't happen if you go to this pristine place and nobody else sees it. So more and more as my career advanced, I recognized that people need to be part of the solution because we're already part of the problem. So they need to be put into that equation when looking at nature. So I went to school, and that kind of idea of playing outdoors for a living kind of survived for a little bit. Got a degree in natural resource management, came back to Hawaii, started a private company for a little while, and ended up going to business school or grad school and doing these different things. And eventually I got pulled back into the government sector, the sector I was most familiar with, and started working on natural resource management projects like managing a marine protected area. So I did that with the state, and then I worked with the federal government, working with fisheries. But one thing I really noticed is that in the past, conservation was kind of siloed. When you think about conservation, you had a very, very specific thing in your head, just like I did. Go to the middle of nowhere, protect the trees, protect the animals, and leave it as is. But things have changed. Things have changed drastically in the past decades. People really need to be part of the solution, and they need to be connected to nature in order to change their behavior. And one thing that really, really interested me when I first saw Conservation International, I was with NOAA at the time, and they came in and they talked about seafood and restaurants and industry and communities and government, all these things, and it blew my mind. It was not the typical way government handles things, and the innovation was just like mind blowing. And the people at CI were, to be honest, quite crazy. They had these crazy ideas and were willing to do crazy things, which really interested me. And eventually I moved over to CI Hawaii, and that's where I'm at right now.
Great. That's really cool. You have a very interesting pathway. Both of you all do, honestly. Makes me a bit jealous as someone who's along the journey right now. So can you speak a little bit about Conservation International Hawaii once you got there, and some of the challenges you all are addressing right now?
Sure. So at Conservation International Hawaii, we focus on returning abundance to the nearshore waters of Hawaii. So, we're on an island, and the island of Oahu, for instance, holds 1 million people as residents, yet we have about 7 to 8 million people as visitors. We're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, yet we import almost half of our seafood and probably about 75% of our food. So it is not an ideal situation. It's something we really need to improve. But when you look at it, that every challenge is very, very complex. And you can't just approach it using one perspective, kind of one knowledge system or one just approach. You have to really look at it at different angles and attack it in different ways. So a lot of our work really complements the different efforts to support local community-driven initiatives, market-driven initiatives with industry and government. And I'll give you a really good example. So a very common way of kind of addressing marine challenges is to work with the government and set up new laws for the public and fishermen to follow. And that's great. That works, but it takes time. Another way to do it is to start looking at restaurant chefs and fishermen and say, hey, how do you drive things from that side of things? And better yet, how do we get the youth involved? How do we get people in the continental United States involved? How do we get people around the world involved? And that's where technology comes in. And this is a perfect example of it.
Great. So whereas your time at NOAA and the DLNR were more about regulation or research, this kind of shifts to outside the box, market-driven economic alternatives, maybe?
Absolutely. And the crazy thinking I was talking about earlier. If you ask me, growing up, how do you protect fisheries? Creating augmented reality and working with chefs and restaurants is not the first thing I would have said. And I guarantee you that's not what most people think. So we want to change that. Right?
Yeah, I had no idea that was something that could ever be done. This is pretty mind-blowing, I would say. So this kind of phases in to the case study that we're going to get into. So can you all, both of you all, talk about your collaborative work and how this happened? Like who came to whom first, or who came to whom first, and what is happening? What are you all doing?
looking at Enrique's screen because
Either y'all can take
it's paths that have intertwined quite a bit. But let me set the stage first, and then I'll toss it to him to kind of talk about how we started. But let me set the stage by saying about 2 years ago, we applied to a grant opportunity with NOAA, and the whole idea was to create this Hui, or group of chefs and restaurants, to really push for sustainability from the market end of things. And the whole idea was to create these really great restaurant in-person events looking at an invasive species called ta'ape. And the whole idea was that if chefs and restaurants could really highlight ta'ape as an opportunity to not only get rid of invasive species, but also support local fishermen and restaurants at the same time, it'd be an automatic win-win, easy win, easily understandable. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, there was projections that nearly 50% of all restaurants in Hawaii were going to be shut down. The economy absolutely bombed. And the idea of taking your family out to a nice dinner with a whole bunch of other people, not an option anymore. But at the same time, we really wanted to get people involved, and we really wanted to show, especially during COVID, there's an opportunity to support local fishermen and support local the local seafood sector by doing this. But how do you do that without actually having people go to the restaurants, to a market? And that's where I'll kind of toss it over to Enrique.
Thank you, Matt. So, I had been in conversations with Nicole Esters, who's in the development side of CI, and I've had a very fun relationship with CI because of a good friend of mine. And we had been really just thinking out loud about what we could do to use technology to help with conservation. And we had ideas, and we went back and forth, but it wasn't until we heard about Seafood Month and the efforts that Matt was putting together on their end that we thought, aha, this is what we need to do. And it was really that. It was an aha moment. But I have to say that Nicole was wonderful in helping us, sort through those ideas and get to the right project. So that's how it started, really.
Very cool. So let's backtrack a second. What is tape, and why are we trying to get people to eat them? Because I know marlin, I know tuna, but I'm not as familiar with the various species of tropical reefs.
Good question. So ta'ape is a snapper, and it was introduced by the state government several decades ago as a way to supplement what was then thought of as a gap in the local fishery. They thought that by introducing a snapper to the local waters, it will provide a food source, which is true. I mean, and it did. The problem is that once they introduced it, it blossomed. It's now found in huge quantities and huge schools from the southern tip of the Big Island, which is the south end of the island chain, to Midway and Kure, and all the way up in Papahanaumokuakea. It has spread and is competing with the native species for both habitat and for food. So you have an invasive species that's plentiful, that's easily caught, and that tastes good. So it's a tremendous opportunity. And it's only caught locally. So nobody imports it for food to Hawaii. So it's one of the few fish that we can say with great certainty, when you put it on a plate, this is 100% local.
Very cool. So it's a perfect storm in a bad way and a good way. It's kind of drowned out a lot of native species, but at the same time, it's available and only available in Hawaii. So it could be something that it seems like you're trying to make a Hawaii, I guess, like personal thing. Like we own this, you buy this, it comes from here. Very cool. So then about you all's partnership, once you guys got together, what did you end up doing? What did you end up deciding? And can you show us if you have that available?
Sure. Yeah. So after we thought this was a good idea, we started thinking about the different platforms that we had as tools to convey a message. And one of the challenges was that we had very little time, as it's always the case, right? There's not enough time for anything, and so AR has evolved very quickly, and it will continue to evolve very quickly. And in the past, you had to build these dedicated applications, these dedicated apps for every single little thing that you wanted to do in AR. But things have evolved. So Instagram Facebook has now a toolkit that's called Spark AR, which allows you to build experiences within Instagram and within Facebook, where you don't have to build an app and ask folks to download an app. There are some statistics out there that say that every app that's or most apps that are downloaded are deleted a week later or 2 weeks later. And so having the possibility of launching an AR experience right off the web with Web AR, or right off Instagram, which most people have, was very convenient. And so we decided to use that toolkit to do this. And also, when you build an app, you have to deal with Apple and with Google. And Apple is very keen on approving anything that you put through their system, or mostly everything, and they're easy to work with. Apple is a bit more complicated with the way they approve things, and so we started seeing through time in our experience with getting apps approved that they wanted to have a lot of functionality to them. So they didn't want an application that you had to download, open it up, and just had one functionality, which it makes complete sense. And so so this toolkit was wonderful for this. And yeah, I'm happy to show. So we did two things with CI Hawai'i. One of them was an Instagram filter, and I'll show you that. And the other thing we did was this mini informational website where that gives you the ability to launch the ta'ape, swimming in your space with a couple of texts and data on it. So yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. All right. Can you see that?
Yep, looks great.
Got it.
Okay, wonderful. So so I'm just gonna scroll through these here really quickly. Okay, so this is, I just wanted to show you all really quickly how we built the fish, how we played God here with our tech. And I'll scroll through this quickly, but this is essentially where we did the 3D art, or how we modeled the fish and how we rig it so that it can move. And this weird looking photo thing is well, you could say the skin of our model. And this is Spark AR, which is where you can build these experiences easily, or relatively easily. And on the right-hand side was the testing that we were doing to test the filter. So I'm going to show you the video of what the filter looks like. So it's essentially, essentially you launch it in Instagram, and you use your selfie camera, and it puts a crown on you that has a counter on it. And of course, we wanted folks to know that they need to eat the tape. And so in the face filter, you have to eat the tape. And you can compete with friends as to who can eat the most amount of fish. So I'll just press the play button here to show you. So, so that was it. And actually, if you all have your phone on you, I can show you how to launch it. So I'm assuming everybody has their phone on them. And what you want to do is you want to go to CI_Hawai'i to get to the CI Hawai'i Instagram account. So I'll give you a little bit of time to get there. And once you are there, you're going to see some icons above the photos that traditionally appear on your account. So these are the photos, and right above, let's see if I can get it with this camera. Okay, so right above the photos, you'll see a set of icons, and one of them looks like a happy face with some stars on it, right next to the Instagram TV icon. So you go ahead and press that, and you see the filter. Thank you. That says "Eat the Tape," and that's where you click on it and try it. And I think Matt, do you have the record? What was your record eating tape?
I don't have the record. Actually, Jana Young, our seafood manager, hit 32 with that. And I secretly think that she's like working with you behind the scenes to break that record somehow. But it's pretty amazing. And I tell you, I've been catching ta'ape all my life. And I've been talking about it with my family a lot for the past couple of years, and they completely ignore me, especially my 3-year-old daughter. But with this thing, now when my kids come to me on a regular basis and say, "Can we eat ta'ape?" And half the time they mean, "Can we eat ta'ape" on the Instagram filter? Half the time they mean eat it in person. So the ability to reach different crowds and different user groups, it expands tremendously when you start talking about this technology and this augmented reality. So it's a great example of how it really works, really can work.
Yeah, and it was when Matt told me the story, it was interesting how, just some people thought it was too pretty to eat it. And so, showing them that it's a very beautiful fish, but you still had to eat it, using these different applications were very useful. I'm going to share my screen again so I can show you the mini website really quick here. Let's see. Okay. Think we're there now?
Yep, we can see it.
So scroll down here to the CI Hawaii experience. And so this is the mini website that was built. And this is all web AR, so you don't need an application download for this. And this is how it works. You go to the website, you see the tape, you can move it around with your fingers, and then you can click a button and launch it wherever you are. So there it is. It's swimming in the middle of a park in Portland, Oregon, the tape. And it looks very real. So that was the other experience that we built to teach folks about the fish.
Great, very interesting, and it's cool that you have a firsthand story of it working, Matthew. So there's a really good question in the chat from Bob Lund. How do you encourage members of your target audience or your stakeholders to participate in one of these AR experiences? So you've got this made. How are you going to get it out there, or how does it end up impacting people? Like how is it accomplishing your goal of getting more people to eat tape?
Great. So I can talk a little bit about that from the Hawaii experience. So the link to the AR and the Instagram filter were included with a bunch of media pushes that went out, in local media, in like magazines and on our websites, on social media. And it was just aimed at basically getting people to try it out. And once they tried it out, and once they kind of learn a little bit more about ta'ape, The next step is to then encourage them to go to the markets, purchase ta'ape, go to the restaurants, eat it on the menus. And it's amazing to see how behaviors change once people make that connection between what they want to do, that's great, and how that kind of behavior change can have impact on the water. And the augmented reality really helps to make that connection, especially during COVID, when kind of personal interactions are very limited. Hopefully only for a little while more. But.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, where to now? That's interesting. So how is this like broaderly impacted Hawaii? So it's very interesting to me that it seems like maybe ta'ape isn't eaten very much now. Is that correct? Or people don't necessarily know that it's something that's eaten? Is that correct?
Right. So local fishermen eat it now. Local families eat it now because it's all over the place. There's a good chance you're going to catch it. What we want to do is we want to make it easily recognized and easily available to everyone, including the visitors. Because if you look at 1 million residents versus 7 to 8 visitors, I mean, there's a lot of potential to take fish out of the water if visitors are interested. When you talk about actual impact on the water, we only had that few months to get Seafood Month up and running, and like Enrique was saying, to get the augmented reality up and running. But just in that few months, we have some pretty staggering changes that we can report on. So the amount of fish that were removed from the water compared, when you look at 2019 versus 2020, when the initiative happened, there's a 20% increase in the amount of fish that were produced, so taken out of the water. So that's huge. And that's just with a few months worth of effort and this amazing, augmented reality. So when you talk about augmented reality having real change on the water and having conservation impacts, perfect example.
That's crazy. 20%. I mean, that's especially from just designing an app, not I mean, talking to people, especially during COVID, when it seems like I would presume less fish would be being sold because Hawaii was completely shut down during coronavirus.
Yeah, it picked up pretty quickly. It's amazing.
That's remarkable. Great. Well, I guess let's zoom out a bit, and because this seems like it's been very successful. What do you think is next for you all? Are you all going to continue this partnership? I think you might have hinted at it a bit, Enrique.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate that, Justin. Well, first of all, I have to say that it was such a pleasure working with Conservation International. They're just an organization that gets it, and the fact that they wanted to sort of think outside the box and work on this was it just it's a testament to the way they think and the way they set themselves up to solve problems in different ways. So that was very, very nice, and it was encouraging. It was very motivating for me to continue engaging in conservation, because I sort of saw the light at the end of the tunnel with CI, and thanks to Matt and his team. I think that when you think about AR and VR and this new media, I think it comes down to just empathy and understanding how bad decisions can make so many humans and animals and just our planet in general suffer, and we need solutions like this. We need creativity applied to conservation, and so I see that these types of partnerships can, well, first of all, I see it as my responsibility to continue to work on projects like these, and I think that telling stories in this way will elicit a high level of empathy in folks, especially as we continue to do also virtual reality experiences that are completely immersive. For example, with our partnership with Celine Cousteau, I think that will help us fix the lack of empathy that so many surveys show us that is in our country now. You know, the empathy in the country has plummeted, as you all can imagine and you've seen. You know, and so there's an interesting quote by Noam Chomsky that says that humans are capable of many things. Some of them are horrible, some of them are wonderful. So I think one of my missions in life is to someday be able to say humans are capable of many things, all of them wonderful. And so you know, we know we're all nature, and we have to make sure that people see themselves in that way, that we're not separate from nature, we are nature. And we have to continue to use not only these tools, but all the tools we have available to continue to build partnerships like this one. And yes, one of the things that we want to do it. We need to find a wall. Yes, a wall in Hawaii. So we, with Augmented Island, we built I think someone was asking if we've done augmented reality experiences in you know, museums or other urban areas. But yeah, we did a mural that's 11,000 square feet in size. It's the largest augmented reality mural in the world in Columbus, Ohio. And we already have the William and Mary augmented reality mural competition for the mural in Williamsburg, which is the first augmented reality mural in history, in the long history of Williamsburg. But we want to replicate that and get students involved and get different stakeholders involved to build an augmented reality mural in Hawaii under the minds of CI Hawaii and their direction. So I'm personally looking forward to continuing to partner up in these types of experiences. That's a long answer, but yes.
Yeah, and absolutely. What I mentioned earlier was that we had originally planned to do a huge Seafood Month initiative coming this October, and we had to pivot a little bit last October to support our local seafood sector. But we still have big plans for this October for the Seafood Month. It's going to be a national spotlight on seafood, so it's going to be a great opportunity to both kind of continue this conversation and this partnership. And one thing I do want to mention real quick, because I believe there's a bunch of students on this call. The one thing I really, really enjoyed and respected about Enrique and Augmented Island Studios is that as a technology, company, he came to us and said, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on with Hawaii? How can we help?" It wasn't, "Here's a technology solution. How can I make it work with you?" And the differences were drastic. I mean, it really, really made a huge difference in the way I dealt with Enrique and how our relationship was built, because it was a conversation about where two things can come together and complement each other. It wasn't a technology solution that I needed to shove into certain problems or create new problems for. And that's a huge, huge aspect that I think isn't addressed enough with technology. But when the right fit is there, when the right relationships come together, it can be an amazing, amazing thing.
I just want to say that it seems like you all are both on the forefront of innovation in you all's industries. Just like you don't see, or at least I haven't seen many companies reaching out to the public sector or an NGO to try and use their technology to help them like reach their goals. And then it's pretty revolutionary as well that you're kind of, Matthew, reaching across the aisle and using a lot of new things like I would never have thought of to advance your mission. And so next question is, what have you all learned from partnering kind of across such broad disciplines and through this interdisciplinary work you've done about bridging the gap between business, technology, and conservation, and about achieving your goals through diverse means?
I'll say something quick, Matt. I think that we're trying to bridge a gap, but really the gap is just an illusion. It's all just like nature. It all fits together very well, and it should. And so while I was working on this project with CI, I quickly realized that there is a way to make things that are completely unrelated, to be very, very related within each other. And which is funny because that's how nature is. Everything is interwebbed and interconnected, and so we just have to ensure that that we think about these things in a different way. I think like you said, we're trying to bridge a gap, but there really isn't a gap, and we found that out as we were working together on this.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I don't think conservation is or should be thought of as a field anymore. I mean, if you breathe, if you drink water, if you like stable weather conditions, you should be concerned about nature, and that should be kind of incorporated in everything you do. And I think it's happening more and more. Whether you're, building cars with Tesla or doing something else with the restaurant industry, I mean, whatever. Basically, everything ties back to nature somehow. So everyone has the choice of kind of creating behavior change or doing things with that in mind, or ignoring it. And that's the major bridge we need to build, is bridging that understanding that people are a part of nature and can be the solution in everything that we do.
Great, very cool. Seems like, yeah, I agree that sustainability and conservation are increasingly all-encompassing issues. They're issues that you face regardless of what industry or what task you're trying to complete. And I think that is what makes them so unique, but what also makes them difficult to solve, and what makes them require all of us to kind of work together. So question here from the audience. If the consumption of ta'ape does increase with the usage of AR, how much do you think this will help local businesses and the natural environment? Like, how can we quantify, or how are we working to quantify this impact?
Great. So we're quantifying it in several different ways. The most obvious one is with the commercial catch data from the state of Hawaii. So commercial fishermen are required to put in commercial catch data. So basically, how much fish they're catching, and then dealers are can report their sales. So how much fish are they selling? And with that information over time, we can see the amount of fish that are coming out of the water and how much people are making. We can also use supply chains to understand if restaurants are selling it more and profiting from it more, if fishermen are getting a higher dollar per fish or per catch that way. So you can look at it from an economic standpoint, you can look at it from an environmental standpoint, but you can also look at it from the amount of fishers that are getting introduced or entering the fishery and coming out of fisheries that are less sensitive. So if there are fishermen that are currently targeting sensitive species and can switch to an invasive species and still make the same amount of money and feel great about doing that, that's a huge win. And that's something we're trying to quantify.
Great. There's a great question in the chat, which I'm waiting on because I think this is a very good finishing or a later question. I'm not ignoring it, but I would say something else that we're wondering is the ultimate goal to eat them to the point that they're no longer in Hawaii, or just to get the population to a sustainable level so that other fish can begin to thrive?
So to put it nicely, ta'ape are kind of like roaches. I mean, it doesn't matter how many roaches you squish or spray things on, they're always going to be around. Ta'ape is the same way. And the goal isn't to eradicate ta'ape, because that's not going to happen. And in that sense, it kind of cuts off a supply chain and an opportunity for fishers to kind of support local food security in the islands. So the overall goal is to show that once you build this system of chefs and restaurants, and you add in technology and communications, once you have that system, you can turn it on ta'ape, show that it has a huge impact, and then turn it elsewhere, maybe to aquaculture or to invasive seaweed, or who knows. The goal right now isn't to wipe it out, it's to show that it's a sustainable species that can be harvested.
Great, very cool. So that, I guess it's just very quickly reproducing, and therefore you can eat a lot of it and it seems like it might never run out. So do you know if anything like this is being tried in other markets? For example, like Chesapeake Bay, which is right near us in Williamsburg, or in, I guess, other oceans?
There's a lionfish example in more southeast kind of the United States. There's the snakehead example in the freshwater lakes. There's armored catfish in different countries. So the idea itself isn't new. I mean, you can take an invasive species and you can address food security and economic concerns that way. So we're just building on that example. And one thing that's really kind of innovative with this example is the introduction of augmented reality. I mean, it's a game changer. It really is.
Awesome. Let's go to this Q&A question. So I'll just read it off. One struggle conservation educators face is connecting experiences across disparate communities to avoiding the other or someone else's problem that can occur. What strategy have you used to create bonds or connection between communities and activists in the mainland to your work and communities in Hawaii? I guess what links the Top A story to someone in New York or Virginia?
So as I was just saying, the problem with invasive species is worldwide. Our goal isn't to connect, say, seafood eaters outside of Hawaii with an Hawaii issue. Our goal is to show that you can take this invasive species, you can work with industry, you can work with technology and make a really good thing out of it. Then you can do that in your own area, in your own country, in your own geography. That's the goal. We don't need everyone to know and taste ta'ape, but if you can learn from the example and do the same thing in your area and have a positive impact on nature, that would be awesome.
And I think something else in addition to that is, I don't know, 10 years ago, in a business environment, in a corporate environment, you weren't thinking of, when you were thinking of digital transformation, you weren't thinking of AR and VR. And now that is essential, that you use AR and VR as a component of your digital transformation wherever you are. There are many industry experts who know a lot more than I do, who are saying that in 8 to 10 years, cell phones will be thing of the past. You go from the print to the typewriter to, let's say, the PC, from the PC to the tablets and mobile phones, and from the mobile phones you go to AR, where you just be able to wear a light pair of glasses and project your desktop in front of you. Have your news show up, then you have your mom calling you, and and so everything that you do with screens now, is projected to be, no pun, in front of you with augmented reality. And so it's really important. It doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit organization or a corporation, for-profit corporation, you have to think of AR and VR as part of that toolkit, because Apple, Google, Facebook, all the members of FANG are paving this multi-billion-dollar road to make this happen, and it's happening a lot quicker than I expected, especially with the pandemic situation, and so I think it's very key to think of AR and VR as part of the digital transformation that you have to continue to go through in any business or nonprofit environment. And I think this is what we've done. We've added to the toolkit that CI already had. We've added these two components to it.
Cool. It's sort of sounds to me almost like the Google glasses. It's going to be like something like the Google glasses of, I guess, 5 years ago that were all the rage, and that's going to take over. Is there a risk that AR and just the artificial nature of it might detract from genuine connections that we could make with nature or through nature, natural experiences?
Well, I think there's a fine line. I mean, we used to ride a horse, and now we drive cars, and it still hasn't disconnected us from nature. And hopefully it'll be electric cars for most soon. But I think it has the potential to educate people, and like I was mentioning before, just having more empathy about everything related to nature. So I think, like every technology, it can be used for good things and it can be used for bad things. There are a lot of ethical questions that come about, where if I have a pair of AR glasses, they need to scan the room I'm in, or they need to know where I'm at, and so they might have cameras on them. And how would you feel if I'm having a conversation with you and I have my AR glasses on, but you don't? How do you know I'm not recording you? So there are many things to think about. But I think that I'd like to think that most of us are thinking of applications that will make the the world better, versus something else. But yeah. Cybersecurity is something that I'm very interested in also, because as you can imagine, there will be some of this technology that is used in the wrong way.
Definitely, but I mean, these sort of ethical dilemmas are common to every single technology. So that makes sense. Based on your experience, how do you assess if AR or VR might be a good challenge? Like, for example, when you were talking with CI Hawaii before you had an idea, how did that idea come to the forefront of what you felt like AR or VR could best benefit?
Well, I think it was an exploration that took a while, because we started talking, or I started talking with CI Hawaii. I think, Matt, that was about like a year and a half ago, or 2 years, something like that.
At my house, yeah.
Yeah, I just dropped in to a little party that Matthew was having for the CI team, and we just kind of connected back then, and it was a combination of the time that passed, our initial conversations, and the technology that had been developed. For example, the Spark AR, where now we could turn around things quicker, or applications, but now we could turn around experiences much quicker. And when this opportunity came about, there was just a series of involuntary connections that we already had, and ideas that just worked out perfectly.
Very cool. It's like a perfect storm almost, or the perfect situation. I didn't realize how, even as someone in technology, I didn't realize how new Spark AR was. That it just came out between the time you all met and started this mission. How quickly did you all churn out this project? Because I guess you had this for last October, for the month, Fisheries Month.
Yeah, there's the big initiative hit in Seafood Month, so last October. But Enrique and his team were amazing. I mean, you guys work like lightning, super fast.
Thanks, man. Well, no, I think it was also, I'll say this again, the organization at CI is just very impressive. I mean, we were on with their tech team quickly. Things got resolved and done within, once we had the app, everything was up and running within days. And so it worked out perfectly. And I hope that, anything else we do in the future like this can be as smooth as the topic project was.
Awesome. I have another question from the audience. So it reads, AR is a really fun way of gamifying the issue of non-native / invasives, and your use of restaurant leaders is a great example of modeling. Are you all considering a fusion of AR and modeling and or influencers? Like maybe with a meal prep AR with a chef or something of that sort?
Not yet. And I think that, you know, AR is quirky. We have to ensure that if we build something, it has to have some sort of ROI. So, you know, we've ran into this problem when we started the company. I want to say we started early because you have to find a way to measure the success of things. So with the filters, you know, we were able to see that in a short amount of time. We had 5,000 impressions of the filter, and then all the things that Matt mentioned. But you have to build things that give you ROI. And what I'm saying is that when we started the company 3 years ago, we were very concerned that AR as a technology was still a nice to have and not a must have. So it has been very slow. And even though we've thankfully done very well and worked in many different industries, our goal as a company has been to ensure that stuff has an ROI, or that it can be measured in some way. Because there are a lot of things you can do that are very nice and beautiful and attractive, but they have to serve a purpose. And so I'm not saying that wouldn't. It's just sometimes it's tricky and difficult to think about how you find that ROI. As the technology evolves, you know, it'll be, you know, much more interesting. I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard what's going on right now with NFTs, with non-fungible tokens. And you know, an artist that goes by the name Beeple just sold in an auction at Christie's a digital piece of artwork for $69 million. Digital. What I mean is I can take a screenshot of it and print it and have it in my office, and it's mine and I can see it, but it was someone owns it, but I can have it too, and I can take screenshots of it. And so there's these new things called non-fungible tokens, and there's, you know, I encourage you to read about it. It seems like there's a big bubble there, but there's also something that carries some weight. I heard the CEO of Sotheby's talking in a clubhouse group a few days ago, and they are going to also do another NFT auction, and it's all blockchain related, right? But right now, if I were to say, well, you know, I want to build an app that converts my walls into a Dali museum. And so I'll go ahead and develop, you know, 3 art pieces by Dali, and then I have my phone and I'm able to look at the art pieces whenever I want on my phone, but that's it. You know, what's the ROI there? However, now you're starting to see these digital assets sell for a lot of money. And a lot of people think that these digital assets will become a thing. So when you have your glasses and you don't have to hold your phone, which is very uncomfortable, to hold your phone to launch these experiences, maybe that artwork now can be seen by your family, or maybe now it can be really displayed in museums because it's easier to show it with AR glasses. So ROI is a big deal. Some things that might seem crazy now will probably be normal in the future, but that's the wonderful thing about this industry. It's a discovery world right now. And so anyways, again, a long-winded answer, but just food for thought about, you know, non-fungible tokens, AR, ROI, what do we do now? What do we do next, etc.
Very wild issue, rapidly changing industry. I haven't heard of NFTs before this. So another question from the audience, and maybe this is more directed to you, Matt. Fishing industries are facing dwindling stocks, often rebrand trash fish with catchy new names. For example, rosefish, Chilean sea bass. Any idea of giving tape a different identity to overcome the reluctance to eat it? like something tasty sounding?
Yeah, this has come up quite a bit. Tape, is not an easy word to say. Golden snapper would actually be very appropriate. But I mean, we just decided to stick with the original term, the Tahitian term, because people need to learn about the fish. I mean, you can rename it, you can rebrand it, you can make it look different, but that's really not going to address the issue. People need to learn about invasive species, and they need to learn that by eating an invasive species, you can have a great meal, support the local economy, support food security, and get rid of that invasive species. If you call it something else, it's just going to be something else.
Oh, it's all about educating people. So even conservation is a lot of the times a people-centric issue. Another audience question. Can you please talk a little bit about some of the ways that AR can be used to influence behavior and or engage people in other arenas? This says, I'm wondering how it might be applied in achieving a desired outcome or experience in another nonprofit or another business setting. Sounds like this would be to you, Enrique.
Yeah, I think it's endless because it's digital. But one of the ways that I thought would be very helpful to use AR in conservation is to think about it as the future's infographics, where you have an infographic that shows you a lot of information in just a little piece, but with the fact that it can be immersive and you can have people participate. And so one of the ideas that we had, that I spoke about with one of Matt's colleagues over a year and a half ago, was to show, for someone like Conservation International, have a planet that's, our planet that's floating right in front of you. And you have a series of buttons and interactions where you can show how different projects or which projects had been started around the world for CI and where they were at currently, and also show the ones that had been completed and what the success story was for that. So you could essentially walk around this floating planet and look at what had been done around the world for CI. And so that's just one idea. But I would think that any issue or problem or challenge that is able to have a compelling story or can use storytelling behind it, it can be a good use for AR and for VR. So it's endless. It's endless, but yeah.
Great. So I guess focusing now on people like me or other William & Mary students or our community, what advice would you give us if we're interested in honing our innovation, collaboration, entrepreneurial, and professional skills in order to advance conservation in our careers and our personal lives, especially if we aren't directly working in an industry like Matt?
Sure, I can take the first stab at that. My kind of suggestion is to know what you're good at and be good at it. You can have your expertise, and that's yours to rule over, to direct in any way you want. And then you can take a little bit of effort and learn about conservation. Learn about our world and what's wrong with the world. And then you take your expertise and see where you can improve it. Like I was saying earlier, every profession, every training, any sort of kind of schooling you go through can have a positive impact on our world and in nature. You don't have to call it conservation. But once you have your expertise and once you're good at it, see where you can help out. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I would say that that feared word networking. I'm only going to mention it because it's not networking for me, but when I was very young, my mom taught me that networking is giving. Not trying to receive or not trying to go, through some back door to try to make things happen, but, think of networking as giving and try to see where you can contribute to a cause or an issue or, a project, whatever, but always think of giving and think about the outcome, the positive outcome that your work can have on a conservation challenge. And so I think for me, that's a big one. I'm that person that still keeps in touch with my friends from camp when I was 13 years old. And that has worked for me, just, put giving as the first thing you think of when you think of networking and connecting with others. See how you can give.
That's refreshing to hear as someone who is deep in the career searching phase. It's really nice to hear someone talk about giving rather than just trying to be a part of the rat race of meeting as many people as possible. So I definitely appreciate that advice, and I'm sure other people here do as well. Thank you both for that. So I have another question here. Some of the issues for conservation are the indigenous knowledge sets are being lost. Can AR help with applying those ways of knowing among more people? Matt, you talked about this right before we went live about the fishing practices. So I'm sure there are examples of that.
Yeah, it's a difficult issue. I mean, there are indigenous knowledge and indigenous peoples all over the world that are disappearing. The augmented reality provides a really, really unique opportunity to kind of tell that story without directly impacting those people or traditions in a negative way. So you don't want to ship everybody into an indigenous community and have them experience everything. That would be horrible. But augmented reality gives you that opportunity for people still to experience that and contribute in some positive way without having a negative impact on that tradition or that people. So that's a perfect example of the tremendous kind of potential with augmented reality.
And yeah, and Conservation International has really been in the forefront of using new media. I remember I had the fortune of going to, thanks to my friend who's part of the CI board, I was lucky enough to go to one of their board meetings in Iceland. And I remember back then, this was many years ago, Conservation International was already using 360 video with VR headsets to tell stories. And this was about I believe it was a coral reef story that had been repaired. And so yeah, that's been refreshing for me.
Awesome. The fun one. Both of you, if you could go back in time and do something in college or get an experience you missed out on a ton, which it doesn't really seem like you all missed out on much from my perspective, to be honest, what would you all change to enable your conservation careers?
I would have started the IIC.
Well, you're a part of starting it now, it seems like, so you've got that going for you.
I would have played less video games. No. But to be honest, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, our past is what makes us today. So I learned a lot of great lessons by doing things the right way, but I probably learned as many lessons, if not more, from doing them the wrong way. So I probably wouldn't change anything.
No regrets. So one final question. We started tonight's event talking about how I personally am interested in conservation and how everyone is interested in conservation. So what makes you all hopeful about the future of conservation, and what motivates you all to continue with this important mission, especially in the face of everything that's going on today? Because I feel like sometimes I can get down about how much there is to do and how little time we have. How do you all stay motivated?
Well, I sometimes I am very motivated, and sometimes I'm very worried. But you know, I'm happy to see that corporations are starting to show, you know, some pretty big efforts, you know, on the on behalf of the planet. You know, like you know, Volvo talking about going all electric, and some of the other companies also sort of following that route. And you know, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and it makes me very happy to see how they're talking about things that we weren't talking about when I was younger, and that makes me very happy. But I'm Colombian, and I can also tell you that sometimes I worry because we don't see that much of this in America. But I still, you know, when I still travel to Latin America, you know, I love it. I love my country. I love my people. I love the land. But if we think that there is work to be done here in the United States about conservation, you cannot even imagine the amount of education and work that needs to be done in developing economies and third world economies. And I don't mean third world in a bad way, just developing economies. And so sometimes sometimes I worry, but that gives me the steam and turns my engine on even harder to continue to fight for the environment. But you know, I would say, you know, I'm not a negative person. I'm typically very positive. So I think it's good that I'm worried, and I think that, you know, there's a lot to do. But seeing those changes in the younger generations it makes me very happy. It makes me very, very happy, and I think that you know, I'm in the technology field, and so I think that I could have that our work at Augmented Reality Studios can make a big impact with the younger generations.
Awesome. What about you, Matt?
For me, it's probably the biggest energy booster for me is talking with my kids and talking with students, whether they're kindergarteners or master's students. I mean, we no longer have the luxury of saying, I didn't know what I was doing is bad. When I have my 3-year-old talking about nature, or my kindergartner talking about carbon sequestration, I'm like, whoa, we have an understanding of nature now that is off the charts. We actually know what we're doing and what we're not doing, and we can make the change. So that's great. We no longer have that excuse to say we didn't know. So that's great, but it's also, like Enrique was saying, it's a little bit a downer sometimes when you look around the world and see things aren't going as they should. But you know, you can't just give up. We have no choice. And every time I get down and out, I just give my kids a hug, and they'll say some things that just blow my mind, and right back in it. There's the hope for me.
Sounds like you're raising a couple of future conservationists over there. I just want to thank you all, for both of you, for taking your time out of your busy days. And I don't even know where, Portland and Hawaii, completely different time zones. And for this engaging and inspirational conversation. I've been saying conservation so much, it just came off the tongue. I know I speak for everyone when I say that we leave inspired. So thank you all for your time. And thank everyone on this panel for joining us this evening, and for you all's questions that were very engaging and thoughtful. It means a lot to us that you decided to attend. I'm going to pass it back to Erica to give a little bit more info on an upcoming initiative.
Sure, yeah, thank you, Justin, for leading such an engaging discussion. And again, thank you, Enrique and Matt, for sharing your time and expertise with us tonight. as Justin said, I think we're all leaving inspired. So thank you for all your help. I also like to thank the IIC team and the Mason School of Business for their support with tonight's event. And thank you all for spending time with us this evening. I'd like to end by encouraging you all to sign up for the IIC listserv to learn more about how you can get involved in our initiatives. As I mentioned earlier in our introduction, we're looking for students and faculty, alumni, parents, community members, and conservation partners to join us in our mission. And there are plenty of ways to get involved. Specifically, I'd like to encourage William & Mary undergraduate students to sign up for our Immersive Mural pitch competition this spring. And so the deadline is March 24th to register. And we're looking for interdisciplinary teams to pitch a concept for a mural and a corresponding augmented reality experience. And the winning team will receive a $300 prize for each team member and an opportunity to work alongside Enrique and his team at Augmented Island Studios, Eric Scottness, a professional mural artist, and a collaborative team of William & Mary experts to actually implement the mural and experience next fall. So it's an incredible opportunity to take what you've learned here tonight and turn it into something here in Williamsburg. So again, thank you all for joining us this evening. And Enrique and Matt, I'd especially like to thank you for your time and your expertise. This really was inspirational.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, and thank you, and John and Rob and all of you guys at the IIC for doing what you're doing. You know, the IIC is for me an inspiration. So thank you for that and for inviting me.
Great. Thank you, Enrique. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Justin. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again soon.